Hey guys, I hope you're good and you've had a beautiful weekend. So I thought we should switch things up a little bit. We have been talking about mental health for a while and I still have other videos that I'm going to upload, but I actually thought it would be a good idea to introduce you to the next topic that we're going to be discussing, and hopefully this will get you guys thinking about questions and also suggestions that you may have for me. But as I said, I will be uploading other videos to do with mental health. But for today, moving forward, we are going to be discussing the generational gap between our parents and our generation. And the reason why I thought this would be a good topic to explore is because I feel like I'm in the middle. Obviously, I have to look at the relationship between our parents and our generation, but I am also a mom, so I am actually playing a part in raising the next generation, and I feel I can learn from that relationship between our parents and us, and that will help me in raising my children as well. So moving forward, we are going to be discussing several subtopics within this, and we're going to be looking at the key differences between our parents' generation and ours, and just learning from that and just helping each other. So we're going to look at that. I'm just going to give you a list of some of the things that we're going to be looking at, and hopefully you'll find them interesting. So first things first, I've heard a lot of our parents' generation saying or asking the questions, what will people say? And this always comes up when a young person is thinking of doing something, thinking of maybe picking a certain career, or expressing themselves in a certain way. You always hear our parents asking, what will so and so say? What will the pastor say? What will my best friend say? What will the neighborhood say? And it seems like there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, when it comes to our parents. So I just want to look at that, and also whether or not that helps the young person, because I know that with our generation, we encourage each other to express ourselves freely, and really voice our opinions and not worry too much about what the world says about us. Of course, we do our best to be good citizens and contribute to society, but we are also not bound by the mindsets of those around us. Whereas it feels like with our parents' generation, they're really caught up on what so and so will say, and it can affect the relationship between the parent and the child. So next thing, we're going to be discussing discipline. Oh my goodness, the amount of times I have heard parents say the reason why so and so's child behaves that way is because he has never been disciplined the way we were disciplined. And of course, when our parents talk about discipline, they talk about being whooped, and obviously the fact that being, for example, in the United Kingdom, they're not allowed to do so to us, right? And as funny as some of the conversations may be, there really is a need for us to discuss whether or not it's still any the way that our parents were disciplined, whether or not that's still effective in this day and age. And also, when parents are disciplining their children, do they need to explain why? Because I know that for our parents, when they grew up, their parents didn't need to explain themselves. They would just discipline them, and you would just do something because your parents said so. But in our generation, we like to ask questions. We want to know why you want me to do A, B, C, and D. We want to know why I'm not allowed to do, etc., etc. So is it important? Or when a child begins to ask questions, does that maybe mean that they're a disobedient child and they should be disowned? Next, we are definitely going to discuss some of the topics that would be considered a taboo in some family homes. Things like contraception, safe sex, pregnancies, abortion, drinking, taking drugs, etc., etc. And the reason why I think it's important for us to talk about these things is because when I've talked to people in our parents' generation, a lot of them, they are under the impression that their child would never ever drink, their child would never smoke, their child would never do A, B, C, and D, would never have a boyfriend or have sex before they are married. But in actual fact, sometimes that child is known out there for having done all of that and more. So I think it is important for us to talk about these things, because they are a reality. I don't think it helps, just acting as if it would never happen. And we're also going to touch on respect and fear, because I feel that for our parents, some of them, they feel that a child shouldn't even try and do ABCD because they should be afraid of their parent. But then what I find is, when a lot of children leave the family home for university, they actually end up experimenting and doing all the things they've ever wanted to do when they were in the family home. So it's not a case of them respecting their parent, but it's a case of living under fear and thinking, I can't do this because my dad is here. I can't wear, as a boy, I can't wear earrings because if dad sees me, then I'll be in trouble. But the moment that he goes to university, because his friends are doing so, he will do it. Because his friends are experimenting with drugs, he will do it. And a lot of us who've raised our children in a Christian home, we actually think our children would never take part in some of these things, but our children are actually right at the center of it and taking part in all things and other things that we've never imagined. Okay, this one will definitely be controversial. Why is it that a lot of young people are running away from church? If church is all they've known, if they've been raised in a family home that goes to church, a lot of young people have grown up with parents who are pastors in a church, but the moment that they become of age, they run away from the church. They don't want to hear anything about church. And for those young people who will still go to church, some of them, they go there, but they are absent in terms of their mind. They are there, but you can tell they're not interested in what's happening. They're only going because mom and dad are making them go to church. And we're just going to look at some of the reasons why. And the key topic we're going to discuss within that is the grading of sin. It seems that young people feel at times that for maybe our parents' generation, when we are within a church, the church context, they maybe look at the young people or the youth as bigger sinners than them. But then when you look at, for example, maybe they think a young person is fornicating, and that young person knows that this person is gossiping or taking part in adultery, for example. So how do you weigh those two sins? Or should you even try and weigh the sins? We're going to look at marriage, the topic of marriage, and also what happens within the context of that. And the reason why I think this is important is because a lot of the times when a child is being raised, they are taught about marriage and told the importance of getting married. And sometimes we make marriage an achievement and a goal for young people. And marriage is a beautiful thing, it's a blessing, but sometimes we sort of brush everything else aside and make marriage the number one thing, and young people feel pressure once they reach a certain age that they need to be married, and they end up going into it without even considering whether or not they're being married to the right person. And this is when you end up having issues as well rising up within the marriage, issues such as domestic violence and adultery and all sorts of abuse, for example. And a lot of the times when family is involved and when the church is involved, we advise the woman to stay in the marriage or the man to stay in the marriage, because adultery is and everything else, yes, it's not accepted, but at times we sort of give an excuse for that just because divorce is not encouraged. So we're going to look at that and the reason why is because I have read a lot of stories and watched a lot of news stories as well, where a lot of the time when there's domestic abuse in the marriage, for example, it ends up with one person losing their life. So is it more important for us to encourage people to stay in the marriage because we will fear what people will say, or is it maybe I don't know, a time for us to talk about some of these issues and offer people help where it's needed? We're going to explore career choices, and I think that the reason for this is because growing up, for me anyway, when I was growing up, I knew that, for example, if you become a doctor or a lawyer, a pilot, etc., then you would definitely be considered a successful person. But what advice can we give to young people now? Because some of them, they are into trading, some of them are into gaming, some of them are into somehow running careers on social media, some of them want to have a business. So do we still encourage our young people to be safe and maybe choose a career path like nursing, where they are guaranteed that they'll have a job afterwards? Or should we allow them to take a risk and explore, but then there's also a reality that they might not have a job afterwards? Next thing, we're going to look at self-care versus survival. One thing I can say about our parents' generation, a lot of them went through a lot of stuff when they were growing up, and they didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. They just learned to survive. But I know in our generation, we encourage each other to take care of ourselves and do what we need to do to make sure that we are physically, emotionally, and mentally okay. So we're going to look at those two different types of lives, I suppose, and look at the differences between the two. And finally, I've heard a comment where our parents' generation will say, you have to do this because that's what we've always done. Whether it's in a family home or it's in a church, you hear people saying, that's what we've always done. And it really has me thinking at times, you know, whether or not that's effective, because we have young people who like to ask why. Yes, we understand you've always done that, but then as a people, how can we grow? How can we evolve if we're not allowed to question the rules and the norms of our society? So those are all the little topics that I have within the generational gap between our parents' generation and ours. If you have any other suggestions, feel free to get in touch with me and let me know by leaving a comment below, or you can send me an email as well. You can get my email in the description bar below. Let me know what you're thinking about these topics, and ask me questions as well. And finally, to parents from our parents' generation, I just want us to question the way that we parent our children. Not to blame ourselves, but let us ask the question in our own minds. Let us ask ourselves and be honest with ourselves. Are we raising our children in an environment where they feel loved and they will be able to contribute to society as they grow? Or are we raising them to one day, once they are older, be young people who need counseling or therapy in order to recover from their childhood? And that's it from me, guys. Thank you all for watching. I will see you on Friday on Motivational Fridays. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, etc, etc. Thank you as well for watching all my previous videos. I really do appreciate your support and all your comments. All right, guys, God bless you. Take care. Bye.